Hi, this is Christian. Welcome to Java 2. In this video, I'm going to go over exercise 38.13, which is one of your assignments, as well as, maybe give you an idea of how you can tackle your final project if you are going to use JSP as your option here. So this question here asks you to build this multiple choice, actually it's a multiple question opinion poll, which is just a survey. So here you look at this diagram in A here. It has the questions and then just a yes and no response, and you submit that survey, and that will take you to a second page. Will give you the result of yes and no's for that survey. It will count the number of yes and number of no for that question, and so on. You can go back and then retake the survey, and then you get a new result over here. Okay, it asks you to read questions and answers from a database table. Here's a table to display information from the form. You can go that route if you are comfortable using database. If not, you could just use a class and then store in RAM. That's okay too. So in this example, I'm just going to use an array to store the data in the RAM. And then of course there are other options as well. You could use like an array list if you want to give the user the option of adding new questions. Okay, but with the array, then you're pretty much kind of fixed at how many questions you have, but the concept is still the same. Okay, so I'm going to do one using just the arrays to solve this problem here. So let's go into Eclipse. I'm going to create a new project. This is just a Java JSP, so a web dynamic web project. And this is chapter 38.13. Okay, let me just rename that. 38.13. I put JSP so I know that it's a JSP class. Here, just go next, create the descriptor, and finish. So in here, the web content, we're going to build the view. Okay, usually when you build a website or web project, you're going to go with the view first. Okay, build the layout, right? So I'm going to create a new file. It's going to be a JSP file. I'm going to have two of them. So the first one can be my index.jsp. Okay, and this one is just going to take the default JSP HTML. Click Finish for that one. And I create another one. This is be the result page. So I could say, result.jsp. Right, so two pages. So let's go back to the JSP. I need to create the layout. So the title could just say, poll, or just poll is fine. If you look at that form back to the book, you'll see that it has just the questions and then yes and no. So you can use the table if you want for this, right? It makes it look nice and neat. So we could do that. And you can build your table right in here, right? And we have the tr, and then td. You could put like questions here, and then the answer or response, right? td. Well, maybe response. So that's my questions, and then after that, the next row could be your question, right? So for example, one would be like, what does it say? Are you a CS major? So you can say, are you a CS major, right? And that's your question, and then we have the TD for, we say yes and no. So here put input, right? And the input would be like type would be what name is. You could just say Q1. Okay, and then the value would be either a yes or no. So the first one is yes, and then we'll put actually no. The type will be, that's right. The type, we have to say the type is going to be a radial. Okay, and then you put yes and no there, and you put yes, right? and then after that you have another part for the no. So you could have maybe like 3 tables. Let's just say we just remove this whole part here. Okay, let's go question, yes, no. That's for yes, and then we'll do the next one would be, I'm going to copy this, put it here. Okay, this is for the no part, so no. And let me just kind of do this, and let me wrap it as well so I have more room. Where's the wrapping? Forgot which one. Alright, so are you a CS major, and then yes and no, and so on. So for example, if you save this now just to run it, make sure it works, I'm using Glassfish, so I'm going to test it out. Just see what it looks like. I'm hard-coding this all here. This should be coming from the array, so we'll do that in a minute. Just want to test to make sure it looks good, and we'll move on. You also want to wrap this with a form, by the way. Okay, so you have the question 1, are you a CS major? You can go yes and no, right? And then you do for the second question, and so on. You come to submit, and then you also want to reset that as well. Okay, so we got that here, and eventually at the bottom here somewhere, let's see. Okay, well, let me clean up this just a bit so I can see, because this is really takes too much space. So that's gonna be that, and let's do that. Okay, so a little bit cleaner. So that's one question, and so now this part is you can wrap this in a loop. Actually, tr here, right? Actually tr here. Okay, that's one row in the table, and you can loop this inside the loop is just a minute. So you built that table. So really, then you do want to put this whole thing into a form, and let's just do that right now. Okay, the form is gonna the action is going to the result page, right? And the action, the method there will be, we'll use post. You could use get, but you use post in this method. Okay, so that's that. And then finally, the bottom here, you're gonna have like tr and then td. You're gonna have a submit button, right? Say input type is gonna be submit. You can also have the value. You can keep the default value as default, or you can give it a different name, and then you can also do that td, and then input would be the reset. Okay, and we'll just do one more. And let me just put a 2 in the front here to match up my columns. Okay, and then let's try it again. Go back here and then republish. Okay, you should be able to republish this, and then refresh. So here we have the submit button. Here you can reset it, right? And if I put yes and go to the results page, that will be shown here. So if I go over here on the results page, I can now put the information here. So I'm going to say poll result, right? And just to show what that is, you can do something like this. The request, I want to display the information there, so I want to say request dot get parameter, and it's going to be called q1, right? Q1 will return the result of whatever this one's going to be, either yes or no. The value of that, okay, will be displayed right here. So I mean, just to test it out, you can go back here and again go back to the main page and do a republish. Now let's say I click here, submit. You see the answer is yes. If I click no, it should say no. Okay, so that's good to go already, right? So let's go back in here. All right, so this is pretty much kind of the bare bone of how this form should be set up. The next thing is we want to create a bean, the Java bean, right, to process as well as to display this information here. So to do that, we need to create a Java bean class. So go in here, and then I'm going to create a new, let me switch over to the Java, a new, not this one here, the 35 package. We'll call this just com.ch38.jsp. Okay, or you just call ch38.jsp is fine. Make it shorter. And then I'm going to create a class, and this class is going to be just called poll. I need a constructor. I don't need that. I mean the constructor, and I think that's all I need. Remember, the Java bean, a bean class needs to have a constructor with no argument. That's one of the requirements. Okay. Let me just. So here is the constructor. So that's already satisfy that. I need the bean, so I'll use the managed bean. And if you don't give it a name, it's going to be the name of the class with the lowercase p for poll, right? You also want to have a scope. I'll use the session scoped, and we need to import the utility for this. So Java faces bean, replace that with the star, applies to both of them. I mistyped the session here. So now that's our poll, and so I need a question. Right, so it's going to be a string of questions array, and I can assign the values right away. Are you a CS major? That's one question. The second question is, what does it say? Do you live in Savannah? Of course, we can change that to anything here. Do you live in Kenosha? Okay. And then I can add another question here. I would say something like, what do you want to ask here? What would be a third question? Maybe something like, you know, are you under 40? Okay, and then we'll close that. So it's an array of 3 elements, and then we also need answers. So the answers will be just yes and no. So basically we can track it by using a 2-dimensional array to track the questions and then the yes and no for each questions, right? So you could do something like int answers. It's going to be new int, like that. Okay, well, if it's yes and no, then we know that the second parameter here will be just 2, right? The first one we don't know, because the first one, depending on the question, we know is 3, so I could put 3 here, right? I have 3 questions and 2 answers for each. So for now we can do it that way, but usually you want to grab that length here based on this question size, right? So you could do something like, you know, questions dot length, and I think there should be a length here. Yeah, so that will give you the length here. It doesn't matter how many questions you have, it's going to be added here. So this is the preferred way. Okay, so we'll keep it that. So now I need the setters and getters for these. It's a little bit tricky because you do an array, so it's a little bit tricky because I mean, there are several ways to do it. One is you can return the whole question, whole answer as an array, or you just want to get the actual question that you want to turn as a string instead of the array type. So we do that easy one. We do just get the actual question and also the answers for each question. So let's go and create our setters and getters. Source setters and getters, and we just go like that, and let's go OK. I need to modify these though, because I'm going to return the question not based on the whole array but the actual question. So for example, I'm going to return the question of I, right? What that means, to get this question I need to pass in the index of I. and then now I don't need to return a string array, but just the string itself. Okay, and the set question would be the same. If you want to rephrase this question, replace them, you need to get the question, and also you need to get the index, right, of that question. So here again will be a question I will replace with the new question in question as a string, right? So that's what the question. The answers is kind of similar. You need two parameters, right? Two indexes. So the first one could be the int for the question, and the other one will be int for the answer. You can QA, IJ, doesn't matter. So here is question number, and this is the answer number. Okay. Did I do that? Did I miss something there? And oh yeah, and then the in return will be not int, but just the int for the count. Basically, we're just tallying all the total count for the questions of answer A, yes, or answer no for each question. Okay, and then if you want to set those answers, same thing. You need both of them. You need the A and B. So I can do the same thing here. Copy this, put it here. Okay, so question Q will go with answer A, and then the answer here will be just basically we're just going to plus 1 to it, right? So every time we answer for a 0, you get a plus. If it's a 1, you get a plus. So basically, I'm not doing this. I'm basically just adding the count. I'm just tallying the total count for if it's a yes or a no. So I would say 0 it's a no, 1 it's a yes, right? Okay, so that is those are my two setters and getters. Okay. Alright, so let's go back to the index page. And so this part here. Now I can go and use the loop here to generate these questions. Okay, instead of Q0 or Q1, I'm just going to call Q0 to match up with the index. Because if I don't do that, I have to like do a +1, right? So the table can stay. This one here needs to be in the loop. So I'll do this, and then say things something like for int I from 0 to I less than the length of that question. So now we need to create the bean. Okay, to access the data in here, we need to create the bean, which is the poll bean. So to do that in JSP, you can go on the top or anywhere you want, as usually above here. I'll use the JSP tag, use bean. The ID is the bean name. I just call it poll. The class is where you save the class. It's going to be from the chapter 38. You need the full complete qualifier, JSP.poll. Okay, this is the class name. And don't put extension in there. I mean, don't put that Java. It won't work. And we need a scope. So the scope is going to be session. Actually, I made a mistake in there in my code here. I could leave it as is, but I don't really need this. This is for JSF. Okay, so I'm going to delete that. Actually, I don't need that part there. I was thinking about JSF. Okay, so because we get the beans in the session from here, so now this poll is ready to go. Now to get the total poll, I'll go like poll dot get. Usually you say, you know, is the poll of the questions dot length, right? But you can't access the length of the question this way because we set that to private. Or can you? It doesn't seem to work. Let me see if I can close that down here. So I also want to close my for loop down here. So as you can see, yeah, it doesn't work because it's private, right? You can't access it. It's not visible. How do you get that? Well, if you do it differently, if for example you could do something like int, you know, total question. If you know that's going to be like say 3. Then you can do a, you know, get total question here, right? And then, but if you do this way, then you want to put that in here or something. Total question here. Then if you do this way, you cannot do this anymore, and so you have those all different options. So instead of doing this, I'm going to create a new method just to return a total question. So we can do that right in here. Public return int, right? I'm going to return the int size of these questions. So int, just say get total questions, and I'm just going to return the questions dot length. Okay, that will return an integer of the size of these questions. In this example, it will return 3. Okay, and then back in the index here, I would say questions. Not that we would pull dot get total questions, and it's a method. Okay, so we return the total question, which is 3, so from 0 to 3, right? And then we're not including because it's less than. And so now in here, to print the 1, I will do like this. It's going to be I plus 1, right? Because I is 0, and then plus 1 will be question 1. Okay, and then the dot, and this part is the actual question from the array. So now I can do something like this again. I'll do poll dot get question. Okay, get this question of I, which is the first question, right, which is 0, and that's going to go into the questions method, get here, index of 0, can return the first question, which is this question. Okay, that's what I want. It will loop through the whole thing. And then the name has to be unique as well. So name Q0, next one will be Q1, Q2, and 3, and so on. So this 0 needs to be replaced. And that can be replaced with this. Actually, yeah, equals to just I. Okay? You're actually appending this to I. And because they're both a radio button, they want to be the same, right? Both for Q0, Q1s, and so on. Okay, replace that. And then I think that's good. We'll see. So again, save it. Go back to the result here and put that on the other side. And let me do a republish. Where's my server at? My server is gone. Let's go back to this format. Okay, republish and refresh. Hopefully there are no errors. Okay, so here are my questions, right? These are pulled directly from the array. And if I do yes, yes, no, just make sure it works, reset, clears them all, right? And if you do a source view, you will see that the questions are properly named. So Q0 for the first one, Q1, Q2, and so on. And the values I need to check are yes and no, right, for each. And so that looks good to me. If I click submit, it goes to the other page, and this one here we only coded to just get one of the questions. Alright, so that looks good. So that is done for that part. Now we need to go to the results page. So remember that when I pass the data over, I'm going to have the parameter of each questions, Q0, Q1, Q2, and so on, and it will get the value from there, right? So over here, the first thing you want to do is you want to pass the bean over. So you can copy this line here. You need to get the same bean, otherwise it will not work, because the bean gives the session variable. Passed over. Put that on top, and right in here, in the code, you want to verify the code. Actually, this is where you want to process your code. So here, process the data. Okay. The first thing is you want to check for the query string, in this case the request parameters, and then get each parameter, and then see if that's a matching, if it's set to a 0 or a yes or a no, right? If it's a no, then you pass it to the 0 answer, update that. If it's a yes, then that's a 1, so you pass it to the other. You set the answer to be 1 instead. So this part, you basically want to check the parameter. You could do it like you can do something like string answer is set to, let's just say poll dot not poll, just request well, I mean, usually you do request dot get parameter, right? You want to get the parameter of, for example, q0, right? You set that, and then if it's a 0, you want to check, right? Usually you would say if answer is 0, right? If it's 0, then for example you want to say poll dot set answer, so the first question will be 0, and then the 0, so that's a no, you put a 0 here, right? If that's the case. Else you would say again poll dot set answers 0 question, and that's a yes. So that's the idea here, right? But you don't want to do that for every single parameter manually like this. You could next will be like q1, q2, and so on. So again, you want to put this into a loop. Okay, so I could say how many questions do we have? Well, if you look at the here, it looks just like this. We want to look at all the questions, so we can copy this and put it over here. Okay, so for all the questions, total questions, then I need to check this answer. You could do it, you can leave it like this, but then the answer would be not q0. You don't want to hard code that in there. You want to do what? You want to do like q of 0. So you want to concatenate that with the I. Okay, so it will be q0, q1, q2, and so on. Okay, so now once you have that, you can check whether if it's in this case not 0, right? Because we coded to have it either yes or no. Okay, you will say yes or no. And if this is a no, then put in the no. If it's a yes, put in the yes. So the question number is 0. So this is the question number. Okay, and then the no is 0, yes 1. We just hard code that in there because only 2 of them, right? Yes and no. So I'll leave that in there. And then once I'm done with that, then basically I can close that for loop, and then it will go to the next question, right? And the next one, and the next one, until we're done with that. So once this is done, let me just do a format to clean the code here a little bit. So when that's done, then the next thing is you want to display it to the window. So I could leave this as in here. So once I'm done, I can now display it. So I could do again the loop again, right? Like for I would just copy this again without to save some typing. Loop through every question. Okay, and I want to display the question number, so that would be like I mean, again, you can put this to a table if you want. I'm just gonna put it quickly here. I plus 1, right? Question number I plus 1, which is the first question. Actually, I want to you could do it using HTML, or yeah, I'll just terminate that here, and then I will close the question down here, and I'm just gonna, this is just HTML part, right? I'm exit out of the code. So question 1 dot, and then what I want to do is something like this. It would say 1, are you a CS major, right? And then over here it would say 1 yes, something like that, right? And then 2 no. I think that's what it looks like in the book. Let's see, right? 4 yes and 0 no. Okay, so you can put that in here. And I mean, it didn't put the number, but I just want to put that in here anyway. So this part is actually this part here, and then next is the question part. So again, we do a expression here to get the question. So that'll be pull get question number I, which is first question. That's good. We got the question, and then finally is this part here. I can copy this, put it here, and the 0 would be yes. This is the total number. This needs to come from the pull of get answers of so the question of I, which is the 0th question, and the answer of yes would be 1. Okay, this for yes question. I put over here for the second part. That's this part now, and this is the no part. So put 0 here for the no. Okay, so let me just close that out. It will look something like this, and then each line will have a BR, and that should put the results here. Well, let's test it first and make sure it's working, right? So again, let's go back here and republish. Once that's done, we can refresh it and just put yes, 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 submit. Okay, so you see that I have some typo here. I have a 1 yes, yes for each of those. Let's go back here and let's put a no for the first one. So I should have 1 yes, 1 no, and then 2 yeses. So 1 yes, 1 no. Okay, this part didn't work. Okay, and 2 yes and 2 yeses. Let's go back and try again. Let's put all no and see what happens. Okay, so you notice that they don't work, and something's wrong. So let's fix it. Let's go back here. I put an extra typo here. Let's close that. Okay, when you get this answer, it seems like if you look at the results page, all the no's are not even accounted for, right? And so this you have to be really careful here. Okay, I think the problem has to do with the condition here. So notice that it doesn't go to the 0 part at all, even though the question is actually a no. And just to see that, we could go here and just to prove it, that is it actually grabbing the yes or the no, put that into a get. Okay, and let's go back here again, go back to the question and do a republish. Okay, so refresh. If I go yes, no, and yes. Okay, so we see that the first question, it's a yes, right? So Q0 should have been yes, that's fine. The second, it's a no, right? So that should have been 1 instead. And then the third is a yes as well, so that's correct. So it seems like all the no's are being ignored. Okay, and the reason is because number strings are objects. Okay, you can't just compare a string answer of whatever it is equal to a string text like that. All right. So if it's a string, you're actually comparing the actual content. If you're doing this way, you're comparing the actual memory space against this, so it will always be false. So that's why it always goes to the 1. Okay, to do that, you have to say answer that equals no. Okay, put the no in here. If it's a no, okay, if it equals no, then put 0. Otherwise, if it's yes, then go that one. So that's the tricky part. Okay, so save that again and go back here, go back to the main page and do a publish, refresh, and again just put yes, no, no. Okay, you see that now it recognizes that, right? It knows that that's a no and you have 2 no's. Let's go back again, put all 3 no's, and you see that it now works just as fine. Alright, so I hope that's helpful. Just be careful when you compare strings. Always compare using the dot equals something. Okay, equals, and then you wrap that inside there, the actual string. Otherwise, if you put the equal sign, it's not going to work. It will always be false because you're actually comparing the memory address of the answer object here versus the actual string of no. So it will always be false, and that's why it always runs this line instead. Okay. Again, this part here, this is just one way to do it. There are other ways as well. You could also, instead of putting to answer like this, you could just, put this whole thing right in here. and that should also work. I mean, right in here, right? You can do like this. I mean, if you do that, it just a little bit looks a little bit ugly, but if you can do that, and you can take this out. Just different ways of doing it. Okay. Another way you can do is in your index here. So instead of saying, you know, yes and no, you could just put like yes for 1 and then 0 for no, right? So when you read the values, you actually get a string character of 1 and 0. You can convert that to an integer, and then so that way you don't have to check it at all, right? So in this case, if you do that way, then let me see something. I can see if we can do something here. Right, so you could do like, I mean, by doing that, I don't have to check this. I could just comment this out. Let's see if this works. It should work. Okay, so I could do like this. Just do poll.set answers. Again, I don't need to worry about checking whether it's 0 or 1 or yes or no, right? I just go in here and I can then, I'm just to make it a little bit simpler, I just do here string. It had to be a string, right? String answer like I had it before. I should just kept that there. Request, I'll just write that in here, put it here. Okay, so that's the answer. It could be either 0 or 1. And then in here I just put integer dot parse int, right? You put the answers in here. So by doing this way, if it's a 0, then oh yeah, you need to put the first one will be just I, right? The first question and then the answer. So the answer will be if it's a 0, then it will come as a 0 because we set that to be either 0 or 1, right? If it's a no, then it'll be a 0. We convert it to an integer. If it's a 1, we see if it's a 1, it's a string, and then we convert that to an integer, and it should go into populate the data, and so we don't have to worry about if it's a 0 or 1. And let's see if that's the case. Let's save this, and let's go back here, and let's just do a notice that the data don't change. They don't get reset because I'm using a session variable, right? So if you want to reset the whole thing, you have to, you know, close it, you know, reset your server and so on. But I think this is pretty good. So I'm just going to do that and republish it, and let's see if it does something for us. So let me refresh this, and I put a yes, yes, yes. Okay, you see that 655. Okay, next I'm gonna put no, 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 so it should be 233. Okay, no, 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 and I get 233. All right, so it works just fine. So again, if this is easier, if you do this way, then I don't need this whole line of code because that is, it will grab the correct answer already. Again, based on how you set the values here as well. Okay, so I hope this is helpful. If you have any questions, send me an email or post a comment, and I'll be more than happy to respond. Thank you.